All right, you guys, welcome to our Mastery Models Mastermind. I'm so excited to have Teri on the call today. We are going to be talking about a really important topic, which is coming up over and over and over again. We seem to have themes oftentimes around sellers and listings and inventory this year. So today's theme, the master, Teri, is going to be doing overcoming seller challenges and fears in today's market. So for those of you who have not been on one of these masterminds, this is how it works. First of all, this is a safe place to learn and grow. So if you are able to, we want to make sure that you understand this is a mastermind. So please turn your camera on if you are able. Masterminds work better with the real people and instead of little black boxes. We are going to start off the conversation with an interview, mostly around mindset, and then we're going to get tactical in the later part of this conversation. Please, we want to make sure we are answering as many questions as you might have. There are no bad questions on today's call. And so just for disclosure, we are talking at the $2.5 to $7 million production range. All are welcome, but that is the target that we're focusing on, the tools, resources, and scripts to help you at that level in your business. Teri, are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready.
Let's do this thing. Okay. If you were on the State of the Industry yesterday, which I hope you all were, and if you weren't, I recommend you go back and watch it. Awesome. We went over the NAR member profile report, and in that, 60% of realtors across the country cited that a lack of inventory was the reason that their clients were held back from doing a transaction in 2020. Teri, how has that shown up in your business, personal business? And if so, how has it impacted your results?
I would agree that it is hard for buyers to buy properties because we are in multiple offer situations a lot, especially since COVID started. But I have to say that there was about a week or two at the beginning of COVID where we sat on our couches and called our clients and delivered groceries and toilet paper. And after that, we were off to the races. We had people calling all the time to list because they had planned to list that year. They had plans of where they were going, and none of that was changing. They called to find out what we had set up to keep them safe and to get everything done and what we felt would happen in the market if they did put it on, which was nothing but great for sellers last year. So yes, though there is a low inventory, we found as we had a record year last year that the low inventory just came because of so many buyers, but there were still plenty of listings. And this year we've even seen that more in Eugene, where we've had record number of listings, many more than we had last year. And we still have low inventory. We're still under 2 months. So it was just a matter of realizing that we just needed to sharpen our tools and our skills to be able to get buyers in houses and get more listings. In fact, the first 6 months of last year, actually the whole year, I should say, my buyers agents were given the job to pay more attention to listings than buyers. So they weren't supposed to go out looking for buyers. They were out looking for listings like me. And what a difference that made, because with listings comes buyers.
So Teri, I'm gonna unpack some of what you said because there was so many awesome nuggets in there. So, no, this is fantastic because I'm gonna go deep on a couple of those things. Is what I heard you say is at the beginning, as your database, as your sphere and your client network was working through the initial stages of COVID, there was some hesitation, right? That fear. And you guys leaned into that database with love, support, and that really got the momentum going. Mm-hmm. Second piece of that is that your buyer's agents focused on listings. So I'm going to start with the first one, and we're going to circle back to the second one.
Right.
So you're in a weird world of fear and uncertainty, right? So how did you specifically tackle overcoming those concerns within your database so that they felt comfortable moving forward in this market?
We started really early. We had a Zoom meeting and we talked about how are our clients, our buyers and our sellers going to feel comfortable during COVID seeing houses and making a purchase. And we actually had started with one of our ideas was to do a lot more on the virtual tour type landing so that we could make it so they didn't even need to go if they didn't want to. What we found as we got going was that that wasn't really an issue. There were very few people that were having a problem with going to a house. We reassured our sellers by making sure we had put together the protocol of what we expected from all the buyers and their agents. And all of them were framed and big and they sat right at the front door. We bought a bunch of benches so that we could put a bench out at the front of each door so people could sit, put their booties on, trash can to get rid of the booties because we didn't want them back, masks, hand sanitizer. In the beginning, we had gloves, but we had everything there and made sure that everybody felt comfortable with people coming in their home. And, you know, as they got going, everybody did feel comfortable. I mean, I was helping a couple older sellers sell their home and they said, I feel safe. You've taken care of everything. And that was great to hear. So we put all that together and then we started marketing that. Everything from Facebook to anybody we met with we would give our spiel. This is what we do. We were fully prepared. We didn't take long to get a whole program together. And so that's sort of what we did to you know, keep them confident that we were all about them and keeping everybody safe. We, of course, wore masks and everything else. And we always asked before we met with somebody, you know, what were they feeling? What did they need us to do to make them feel comfortable? You know, some people want to meet outside on their patio. I just brought a really warm coat in February.
So we communicated, you guys, like systems work, right? Like when she says we wrote a protocol, like there was a system to handle those questions and concerns that was duplicatable over time. So we were able to resolve some fears, concerns, because today it might be COVID, tomorrow it might be something else, right? Listen to our clients, set a protocol, put a system in place that's duplicatable and replicatable. But let's talk about the next fear, right? Like now that we feel comfortable putting our home on the market, how did we start to overcome possibly the next fear of where do I go from here? How have you addressed that with your sellers?
We put a plan together and we spoke with the seller and we said, the way things are, it is near impossible to buy a home right now and not have sold your home if you need to sell it. You know, the best thing would be is check with your lender and find out if you can buy before you sell. But if you can't, we've got to come up with a plan. So early in the season, we would start early with them. If they said they wanted to sell in May, we were starting in March, going in, getting their house ready to go. If it needed any staging, we took care of it. Everything was done. We took pictures and then they kept looking for things because they didn't want to go on till May. And when they would, the natural recourse would be that we were all ready to go and they would start to realize that they were making offers and really not getting anywhere. And then they'd come back early and say, I think we need to go on early. But if we sell it, what if we don't find something? So that was our next answer was there are ways to make sure that you're protected and we give you time to look. You keep looking, we'll get it sold quickly and we'll get you a long escrow and we'll get you time in the house afterwards. So, you know, that was specific to the plan when we took offers was just know that we may need a 45-day escrow and 45 to 60 days in the house because they're looking for something. And of course, buyers so thrilled to finally have something and not have to worry about it, we're more than happy to give us that. And typically every time we've done that, the people that were looking for a house found something much sooner. and it didn't take near that time to get through it, but everybody was patient. We sort of had a long talk with all of our clients saying, this is the way it's going to be. We're all going to have to be patient. And then when we get to that point, we'll set up the move. 6 days, you're out, 6 days, you're out. So it was really a well put together plan. And we had quite a few, we have another board on the wall that says dominoes, because we had a few that we had 3 or 4 people having to transfer, homes when we finally got all the homes that everybody needed. So
dominoes, the new status. This is a domino transaction.
Exactly.
So you are communicating on a, first of all, professional problem solver, right? Realtor comes asterisk, professional problem solver. We're taking that fear, concern out every step of the way, from making them safe to put their homes on the market to helping them solve problems to move forward. So let's talk about that communication though. At what point in your relationship with your seller are you talking about the options to move forward? Is it that initial consultation, or what does that look like in your world?
It is an initial conversation about, what we can do now, what we can sell now. I can get you time, and a lot of them were a little sheepish and shy. I don't know if I want to sell because I won't have a house to live in. And so sometimes with some sellers, it was, yeah, we'll sell, you get me time, I'll find something. Others were, okay, if you do that, go ahead and do it, but I'm going to get a backup just in case, kind of thing. Nobody's had to move into the in-laws yet. And some just needed to see us get the house ready, see us get it staged, get a feel, get their feet on the ground. And then they come back and say, okay, we're ready. We trust you. Let's go. So, there's they completely trust us in the beginning and they're just ready to try it, to, they sort of need to get a good feel for what we're doing, what we're sharing with them, how hard we're working with them. And then it just sort of pops into place. So
I love that. And when you're actually going out and showing those homes and letting them fail, right? Succeed or fail. I often refer to this, let the market teach them a lesson that they may not be willing or able to hear from you right now, right?
Right. Sometimes it takes that. And some, it just depends on the person, and, everybody is different and we deal with them in different ways. And, it just, we do a lot of re-strategizing here. Both my buyer's agents will take clients out on some showings. They'll write some offers. We'll get through, a few rounds of kind of stuff. And then they'll say, I think we need to get back together and make a plan from here on out, because we're not having a lot of success. So let's talk about what we can do. And so there's a lot of buyers meetings talking about what's the next thing, what can we do better to be more appealing to sellers, that kind of thing. We're constantly, every time we get a listing in, it's a constant conversation of who can we put them with, kind of thing. We're definitely looking at our boards before we even think about listing. Just because, sellers, especially during COVID, if you could come up with a buyer that was willing to pay the price for the house, they were thrilled not to have people come through, especially during COVID and everything else. So we had a lot of people that really loved that. So
I love that. And you guys, this is a piece is Teri is one of our mega agents out of Eugene, tightest market in the state right now. And what she just said to you is every transaction she evaluates, what else could I be doing better? Right? That's the question I have for each of you is are you approaching each of your experiences in real estate, whether it's representing a buyer or representing a seller, and evaluating your own performance, right? What can I do better? What additional value can I add? How could I have made this process smoother, better, etc.? I love that. Let's get a little more tactical now, you guys, because Teri wants some of these people to walk away with nuggets that or options that they just may not have known existed yesterday. Is it Aisha? Am I saying it right? Yeah, she has a question.
It's Aisha.
Aisha, thank you, Aisha. Her question is when you said call the lender to see if you can buy before you have to sell, what would the bank need to see for this to happen, right? It's just a lot of equity. So walk us through, do you have an example or some ideas around how you're looking at a seller who's evaluating whether it is an option to buy before selling? What would that look like for you?
Well, you know, we do have some programs in town that have just actually starting up again with the bridge loan type of program. So we've got those on our radar for some people, and we've talked to the loan agents about who would really qualify for that and what they need and that kind of thing. So, you know, you do have to say this is going to cost you a little bit more, but it's going to make the transition so much easier and less stressful. So, you know, there are some that pick up on that and think that's a great idea, where others are going, you know, trying to do this without spending every dime I have. So not willing to give up the equity and fees. So, you know, it just sort of works out with some and not others. Mostly they're going to need more down. So our first time buyers that are squeaking in are probably, you know, well, they wouldn't need that anyway, but our second time buyers that don't have a lot of cash and are depending on everything coming out of the house minus their earnest money, that's not really going to work. But if they have enough cash to put down and so that they can get the other loan, as long as they have enough income to cover both payments for a certain amount of time, they're more likely to qualify. But lending agents, I'm not a lender and don't claim to be, have a lot of ways of moving things around so that it'll make sense in doing a bridge loan or letting you do that ahead of time. So I've been surprised, you know, that they've come up with ways to do that, and also ways to guarantee appraisals in some capacity without having a lot of cash either, by, you know, making a change to the loan program if that becomes necessary. So always check with lenders. That's like number one. You know, what can we do to help these people get in, and what ideas do you have for this, this, and this? So, because the lenders know everything that I don't have time to know, but I do know that they're experts and they can find ways for, and what I really appreciate even more than trying to be able for sellers to buy before they sell is the appraisal guarantees, because we're getting all these offers and the offers are just way out there, and I'm looking at them going, and what appraiser is going to give me that number, you know? And if a buyer can just even give like a $10,000 appraisal backup, that means a lot to a seller, because you know, it's helpful to know that they're willing to, you know, put their money where their mouth is, kind of thing. So
yeah, and you guys, I would say the biggest piece out of that, Aisha, is do you have a strong lender power partner that you can trust and to ask those questions, right? Like, and what we're looking for is somebody who's creative, right? Like, we're not looking for a no man, we're looking for a yes and person, right? Like, where you really have that trust and faith that you can call them and say, hey, here's my client, here's my situation, can you evaluate and give us the options A, B, or C, right?
exactly. Having a lender that you could call, no matter, even if someone else is working on the loan for a buyer or something like that, but having a lender that you can call and ask questions is like number one as far as getting deals closed and coming up with new ideas to help people that are sort of stuck, especially financially, with only a certain amount of ability to buy. There's a good lender can come up with a whole lot of ideas. So.
And it's also important to talk to your lender ahead of time too, because as realtors, we may think we're making the best move and we might find out that we don't. So for example, if you have a seller who could have bought before, but now we require money and they want to pull equity out of their existing house, they cannot do that once the house hits the market, right? Like, that has to be a preemptive conversation of, are we utilizing the current equity in your home in order to make a move forward? So I love, Teri, that you were starting early and often, and oftentimes just having those conversations, right? Like how do I buy my property, Daisha? Like I typically, same situation in the last 3 homes, I've had the ability to move forward, and I worked with my lender to do an 80-10-10 because I had the 10% down, but I didn't have the 20. The 20 was the other 10 was coming from the equity in my house. So I went out and did an 80-10-10, pulled my mortgage down below the jumbo rate, lowering my rates, put the 10% down, then put my house on the market, sold it. When it closed, I paid off the extra 10. Ended at the end of the day with an awesome single loan on new purchase. Is that helpful and like give you some ideas of things we just may not know until we have a lender who's willing to walk hand in hand with us?
Here in
Jake, did you have something to say, Jake?
Well, I was just going to say, I think as an agent, that's something I hear Teri saying, and all of us that have been in it is, as an agent, be careful that you're not trying to act as the expert in a field you're not. Get a awesome lender that you can trust to be the expert. I think sometimes we rush to say no when we could say yes, and we don't know.
I love that. So financing, that's one of so we've got the fear of getting the house on the market. We have the fear of the financial aspect of it, right? Like the best option there is partnering with a great lender. Let's talk about, hey, we are now sitting, we've done the research. This seller truly can't buy without selling. So kind of walk us through what that, you're starting to work with them in March with an expected day in May. What are the pieces that you're putting in place to help make sure that seller is ready to go and get their house on the market?
Okay, so I have a team. I take care of all listings, and I have 3 buyer's agents. So one of the buyer's agents is meeting with me because we're having a conversation about selling and buying. And both of us there together can fill in any gaps so that they're not doing just one meeting and then another and wish that both of us were there to ask questions. So we're both there, we're both making the plan. Typically, as far as a listing is concerned, we talk about the market, we talk about here's what I've done with a CMA, and this is where I think this price is going to be. But we're also talking 2 months down the line on a very fast moving market. So I'm going to tell you that, a week or 2 as we're getting close to putting it on the market, I'm going to update this CMA, because right now I have sold listings on this evaluation, and there are a ton of pendings that when they close, I'll find out what they actually sold for, because what I'm seeing now could be correct or it could not be. So we are not going to settle on a price till we get close to putting it on the market. So that always eases them a little, because they're nervous and they feel like, am I getting what I should get for it and everything else? And I'm telling them, I realize the difference between now and a month from now. So so they're very appreciative of that. They know that you're thinking about price. They know that you're watching the market. And that's what I've just said to them is, I've got my eye on this. We're going to get the right price, because I'm not going to just give you a number now and forget about it. So giving them the idea that you're paying attention so that they get the most out of their home, that you're watching the market, that you've just appraised a house on sales that are 2 months old, truly, and that you're going to wait for the newest sales before you lock them into a price. So they're already feeling comfortable and feeling like they're being taken care of. The second thing is we start talking about getting the house ready. And I always talk about, the way that my house is, I love it. And I love to decorate, so I love it. But if I were putting my house on the market, I'd be spending a day packing things up, cleaning things off, making sure that it is a lot easier to see the house and not who I am. And so, don't be distressed about me asking you to put things away. This is about making the house shine instead of you shine. So we walk through the house, we talk about what gets put away, what gets packed up, They always say to me, do you take pictures of the garage? No, I don't take pictures of the garage. If you have a nice stack of boxes on one side of the garage, that's perfectly fine. They know you're moving. So we do all of that. I actually have a couple storage units full of staging items, and I have somebody on staff that does my staging. So we will stage any and every house. If it's just moving their personal things around a little bit, just to give it a little bit more of a professional polish, we do it. If it's moving some of their stuff out and bringing stuff that's more neutral in, maybe to calm down some colors and things like that, or to add color, we do that. If it's vacant, we can stage it fully to just lightly, depending on what it needs. But we do that all for free, and we tell our clients that. And the next meeting we have, we bring the stager in, and it's usually a fun time. And we will help them wrap up a few things they didn't put away before we got there and things like that. So the whole goal is to basically tell them, we've got this and we're going to take care of the whole picture, not just, coming in, signing papers and putting it on the market. So we provide professional photography for free. That's on us. And we talk about anything that they know of that probably needs to be fixed. If there's an issue, if they've had issues, we go through the whole, what do you know about the house that we should be concerned about? Because if we fix it now, it's going to be better than if we have to fix it later. So we go through a lot of that stuff. And there have been times where, we've had contractors in, and I have a long list of them that we take with us and give it to them in our listing packet of people that we know that are generally available to do small jobs and can get things done quickly. We talk about the big things and whether we
Teri,
need.
let me ask you, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, before you go on, I'm going to clarify that. You said it's better that we fix it now than later. Why? Like, why would you use that script with them?
Well, because right now I've got people that can go in and fix things quickly and inexpensively. And when you've got somebody that's come through with an inspection and then they get bids and they want this person to do it and they want this, and it turns into a more expensive deal. And honestly, a lot of agents will ask for a licensed contractor to do everything. A licensed contractor doesn't need to do everything. There are certain things, and electrical and plumbing and things like roofing. Those are all things you need professionals for. But a handyman can do a lot of the little things that you're going to end up paying a contractor for if we end up in that spot after negotiations. So,
well, Teri,
plus,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
One more thing is, when people see things that are a little off or broken, or this isn't working right, they turn a faucet on and it sprays them in the face, things like that, that immediately takes dollars off your sales price. So the goal is to have it clean. By the way, we have cleaners that we offer them to come in, and yes, we know your house is clean, but the cleaners will get down and do the floorboards. They'll do everything so that it's, just spotless. And the more we just, I would prefer a house not staged and not beautiful, but clean and looks like it's been, very meticulously kept, than I would a fancy staged house that when I look down go, yeah, except the first time it was cleaned was yesterday, because things have built up and that kind of thing. So having things fixed and clean and makes a gigantic difference when people walk through your house, because they feel confident with something that's been cared for. So
I always say a buyer will judge how well you maintained your entire house based on two areas. How clean is your kitchen and how clean are your bathrooms? And they will make a determination on how well you maintained everything else based on those two spaces. Would you agree, Teri?
Yes. I just sold a house that didn't have updated kitchen and bathrooms, but fantastic area. The outside was immaculate, everything else. And I told them the same thing. Those kitchens and bathrooms, well, they do maintain it beautifully, so they were clean. But I said, it's funny, even though they're not updated, they'll look at that and realize how nice and clean it is. That'll be the difference. And it sold in 3 days. So.
And here's the other thing that I took out what you said, because you mentioned earlier, we create dominoes, right? You guys, and we are this is how do we get our sellers from here to there? If you're in a domino transaction, the goal is to reduce friction, because if any one of those dominoes falls, like the whole thing falls.
It does.
So when she says, let's take care of the concerns up front, it's to prevent the inevitability of buyer remorse, buyer concern, the inability to negotiate repairs later. So doing the biggest one that I always say is it's that spot on the ceiling, right? Like, we either paint it today and make it, like, deal with it today and make it a non-issue, or the moment a buyer sees it, they start looking at everything else a lot more critically. So that's the piece I want you guys to hear, is part of helping our sellers get from here to there is reducing friction at every step of the way in ways that you may not have realized before. Teri, did I sum that up pretty well?
Yeah, and if they're feeling like there's a lot undone, you're going to get a longer list of things that need to be fixed. If they're feeling like, geez, that's the only thing that I can find, I'll take care of it myself. It really changes their attitude. So yes, I agree that I've always said that all the work in listing a house is pre-listing. Once you hit the button, it goes on RMLS, it's a breeze. Really, for the most part, you're in this market, you're a seller's agent, and you're running the show. But if you don't do your work ahead of time, your job is going to be a lot harder the minute you hit that button. So just do it up front.
Okay, I have one more question for you, and then we're going to open up. We've got a bunch of questions in the chat box, and I know some of you are sitting on some as well. So we went through option to buy before sell. We went through, hey, we can't buy. We have to get our house ready. We're going to start to look. So from the time, let's say they do find something, from the time they write an offer on something, you've done all this preliminary work. How fast can you get that house to market to make your offer stronger?
Well, and that was our point of every house got ready immediately. We're not going to wait to get you ready until you find something, or we're not going to wait until the beginning of May if you're going to list in the middle of May. We're going to get your house ready in March so that we have pictures, everything's ready to go. We bring staging stuff in. If you want to put it in a corner and put them back out the day we go on market, that's fine with us, but we need you ready. So we get everybody ready. If there's things to be fixed, we're on getting things fixed. We get pictures right away. The listing's ready. The marketing materials are ready. Everything is ready to go. And we had a couple clients that found a house and the deadline was 6 days out, and bing, it went on the market. And both times we sold it fast enough to be able to say at the deadline, we're sold and in escrow. So, and if they don't get the deal, we're sold. And I always make sure that we get a promise of time if they don't get the deal. We're very upfront with whichever buyer we accept that, we're in this market, they're trying to get this house. If they don't get it, it's contingent on them getting something else. So it works out really great. It really does. Because buyers are just happy.
So for those of, yeah, so here's the conversation is we make the offer. You can write a contingent offer, but our goal is to get it to a subject to offer as fast as possible. So let's clarify that for those of you to sale and it's subject to offer to sale. Teri, let's open it up. Who on the call can give us the definition or the difference between a contingent offer to sell and a subject to offer to sell?
Subject to, and the contingent is, hey, I'm waiting to get my house sold. I'm waiting to get it on the market and get it sold. Subject to is, this offer is subject to the successful close and sale of 123 Main Street, which is currently in escrow. Blah, blah, blah.
Boom. Another icon out of Eugene. Thank you, Ben. You guys, if you did not get that, the difference, so what Teri's saying is my goal is to get it from contingent to subject to as fast as possible, right? A contingent offer is, I know this is review for some of you guys, but for those of you who this is new, contingent is I'm making an offer to purchase your home. It's contingent on the sale of mine. I do not yet have an accepted offer on my house, right? May not even be on the market. So the goal number one is okay, if they accept that contingent offer, we need to be able to provide assurance that the house that we're going to sell is in show ready condition to hit the market as fast as possible, to sell as fast as possible, and that we've got clients that are willing and reasonable going to accept an offer and move forward. Once we accept an offer on their house, the offer moves from contingent to subject to, right? I have an accepted offer. We are in escrow. It is merely subject to the closing. Much more powerful, stronger offer. So Teri, you're saying that you're getting that house on the market, you're getting it sold before the expiration of your contingency period because you're transferring it to subject to, and we're moving forward in domino now. Correct?
Yep.
Oh, sorry guys, we went a little deep on that, but there's sometimes we use the word contingent on a lot, and there is actually two separate definitions there we want you guys to be aware of. All right, Teri, are you ready for some questions? Let's rock and roll some questions out of the chat box.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go back. You guys, we went through a lot of the lending, so I'm just going to summarize the lending. We are not lending professionals. So who is providing those kind of finances? I recommend that you have a couple of great lenders that you have access to, right? Like work with a mortgage broker, and they can often give you a wide variety of products out there. There are banks or credit unions that might have specialty programs that you should be aware of, right? So where I'm going to defer to that is if you do not have power partners and lenders, that might be the first thing you need to solve in your business right now to help you navigate.
There's a fun one there, Leslie. It says, Teri, how do you have the conversation with the hoarder seller? What does that script look like?
With the order seller, are we talking about
The hoarder? So you walk in and
everything?
there's boxes everywhere, stuff's everywhere. How do you have that conversation?
Very, very bluntly but kindly. I like to think that I'm really good at handling those tickly situations, but we will say, here's the thing. We get your house set up so that people walk through and it's open and it's clean and it feels good to be in, and there's not a lot of things around. You're getting more money. If you want to leave the boxes here and have me take pictures of those, you're getting less money. What do you think? You know, it comes down to that. We can do it this way, and we do all these things for you. And the reason we do them is we think that we know that this is one of the biggest transactions most people will have as far as financial. And we take that seriously. We do not just take pictures and throw something on the market, because you've given us the responsibility to handle a very big thing in your life. And we do it like we would handle our own. So I would never put my house on the market with lots of things around. I'd pack it up. You're going to have to pack it anyway, because I'm going to sell your house. So let's get packing early. And then I would even I have assistants, and they've gone in and helped people with things. You know, I said, I have a couple people, they can come in and help you. Most people will say, well, can I pay them? And I say, of course. But if they don't, they'll come in anyway and help them do it. Because I promised them I would do my best, and my best is not to overlook the things I know that make a difference. So,
you know, when you do something like that, Teri, you want to make sure that the liability insurance is really in place and everybody's got some type of a umbrella policy, because you don't want to get into a urination match with them legally.
Yeah.
You guys, here's, I've told Teri, I'm going to add a couple of scripts in there, and hopefully this will be helpful. I was a distressed property expert for a long time, and we actually dealt with a lot of hoarders. And first of all, it's very important to note that hoarding is sometimes also a mental, there's some mental or anxiety issues around that. So number one, how we handle these people needs to be with extreme amounts of care and understanding and no judgment, right? I've had clients who said I could be on that hoarder's house conversation. And you know what I say? That's okay. right? Like, that's okay. So here's a script that the two scripts, Kat, you know this one, right? Like, I'd rather be honest with you now than disappoint you later.
Mhm.
I'm prepping you for a real conversation. And the next one is there's only two things that we can truly control: price and condition, right? Now, when it comes to condition, there's only two options. Is this a condition we can change or not change, right? In other words, if this is a location issue, we can't change that. So it's a price. It goes back to a pricing issue. If it is a changeable condition, the next question you need to ask anybody who's in that level of anxiety or distress is what kind of time, energy, and resources do you have to address the condition, right?
Mhm.
Do you have the time to do the work yourself, and are you willing to do it? Do you have the energy, mental, physical, or emotional, to deal with it? And, or do you have the resources, i.e., do you have the money to have somebody come in here and take care of it? Or do you have family or friends that can help you get in here and pack? If the answer to time, energy, money is a no, then this is a price conversation. And ultimately, if you got to put the house on as a hoarder's house, and they're okay because you walk them through that conversation and they truly know this is a price issue and they're sacrificing all of those other things because they don't have the time, energy, or resources to do it, then they understand that they're going to get a lower price. And you didn't make that decision, they did. Is that helpful?
Very good.
Right? There's only two things that can change: price and condition. Under condition, is it fixable or not? If it's fixable, do you have the time, energy, or resources to address it? You end up with a no on any of those things, then this is merely a price conversation. Cool. All right. What other questions are we missing in there, Jake?
There was the ones about the lender. Somebody asked if they're just getting started out and don't have staging equipment, how does it work? Could they borrow yours for a price? What is that? How did you get started on that, I guess, is the question there.
Oh, I started with very little in my garage. And, in fact, I started by garage sailing and pulling things. I'd go to the really nice neighborhood garage sales and pick up the stuff they were getting rid of. And that definitely worked in the beginning. And then if I hit something that I had to do more instead of less, errands, and I think it's called Rent-A-Center. Yeah, that sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not terribly expensive for renting for a month. And they'll bring it in, which really saves on the back. So I would rent like living room furniture, and one time we actually rented bedroom furniture. But that kind of stuff. So at least that front room felt warm when you came in, if it was an empty house or something like that. But when you're helping people that already have their house decorated, sometimes it doesn't require anything. It just requires you going in and knowing how to put, instead of 25 pictures on a wall, bring them down and do one little cluster. Things like that are all part of staging. It's just a matter of putting things in a way that is more attractive and less overwhelming. So we would come in and just move things around, cluster things, that kind of stuff. And people say, I should have done this from the beginning. I should have had you over. What can I say?
Aisha,
So,
I would say a great way to step into it too is once again, guys, this goes back to power partners, relationships. Do you have, if that's not your superpower to stage homes, do you have a stager or an interior designer that you can partner with to do a consult with your clients that may also accept deferred payment at closing or work with your current client? How I remember a lot of, like, as staging kind of became a thing, we used to do a thing where it's like, hey, we pay for the consult, or you pay for the consultation, but we reimburse it to you at the closing table, right? So you can get creative if that's a necessary thing, but work with a stager who specializes in helping sellers use whatever they have first to lower
and I did
overhead.
that. In the beginning, I had a friend who was a stager, And she had a few things. She was an interior decorator more than a stager, but she had done a lot of staging and still does. And so we had her. What happened, and the reason we shifted was I got busier and it got more expensive because, you know, she charges, she was giving us a deal at $75 an hour for the consultation, but then coming back in and doing things was $100 an hour. Well, that starts to add up, because when she counts an hour, she counts from the time she leaves her house. So when we were doing multiple houses in a week, that's when we decided to grow our staging furniture and collection and train somebody to do it, just because it made more sense as we grew. But she is still a good friend, and I hand her name out to anybody who needs her in Eugene. And I know I have not dealt with any of the bigger, been around forever staging programs here. I have heard pricing, and they're very restrictive. They either stage the whole thing or they stage nothing, but there's no such thing as a half stage kind of thing. And so it gets expensive. But I do know of a few up and coming, just getting started stagers that don't have such restrictive requirements. So if anybody wants those names or numbers, just let me know. So
I love that. Teri, would you put your contact information into the chat? So if anybody has any additional questions, we covered a lot of ground today, from initial seller fears to getting their house on the market, from getting them from here to there, minimizing stress and friction. And you guys, the big conversation that emerged from that, Teri, is relationships every step of the way, right? Relationship with your clients, care, comfort, listening to them, having great power partners in the lending world, and the in your staging world, etc. You and if there's some of you saying what's a power partner, those are allied resources, as called in bold, or other things. I call them power partners because anybody who would be on my team, it's a mutual business conversation, right? Like, we are growing together and supporting our clients together.
Well, and we all know from bold that gathering those people to be on your team is a double asset, because they help you with the clients that you have. They also a lot of times become clients. So they're a double burst of enjoyment. But, you know, I firmly believe that it's a two-sided plan. And so we, at any meeting we meet with a buyer or seller, in our listing packets and our buyers packets, and then at the end of the deal, again, we send out our list of vendors, because they're amazing. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to call one on an emergency for a client. You know, somebody I sold a house to 3 years ago, and they call me when the plumbing's bad. And I'm like, it's Saturday, I don't know, let me call. And my plumber will go out right then and fix it and not overcharge them. And we do Facebook and Instagram advertisements and say, thank you so much because you did this for our client, and put it all over social media. So it definitely, you know, benefits and both people involved. The one thing I want to say about this whole trying to get everybody into houses and the whole routine is to have a plan, and make sure that your clients know that you have a plan and what it is, because they react so much easier if they know what the plan is and they see you executing it. If it seems like an open-ended deal, it gets a little scarier. So
have a plan, an actual plan that they can see and feel and bring comfort, right? It's amazing how much comfort checklist.
Yep.
Awesome, you guys. Teri, thank you so much for this today. We so appreciate you. This was incredible. Hopefully you guys got as much out of it as I did. Teri's information is in the chat box, and please think of her for when you think of Eugene. And you guys have an amazing, wonderful, powerful day.